Mosques have been around for a very long time, but should their purpose continue to be to serve as a mosque, or should they become a hybrid of sorts between a community center? What about Wi-Fi access? Should mosques look into this as well and consider implementing it? Let's get Dr. Shabir Ali's thoughts on this topic. So we're talking about mosques and whether they should evolve. So let's go back to the basics. In the time of the Prophet, how are mosques structured and used?
Well, the Mosque of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, established in Medina after his migration, has served as a model for Muslim thinking about mosques throughout the generations. Of course, this was the society in its earliest stage. The Prophet, peace be upon him, had just migrated away from his hometown, where there was a mosque, a huge one, to which Muslims make pilgrimage even to this day. But that was under the control of non-Muslims at the time. Mm-hmm. And so the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, being driven out from his hometown, went and established another community about 400 kilometers to the north. His first stopping point was at a place called Quba, where he established the first mosque within the Muslim era. This is the first mosque after the Prophet's calling. And then he went further and established what became known as the Mosque of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the Masjid al-Nabi. Mm-hmm. So what sorts of functions did this mosque have? It seems that this was the one stopping place for almost everything. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, obviously was a leader in prayer, and so he led his congregation there in praying before God. And this is the one aspect of the mosque that is most widely known and most widely replicated. But there are other things. For example, he had a group of companions who were virtually penniless. They did not even have enough clothing to cover their bodies well. And they did not have much to eat. Sometimes when a gift was brought to the Prophet, peace be upon him, a gift of some edible, he would share that with these companions. And they used to sit on a certain platform, and perhaps for this the reason they were called Ahlus Sufa, the people of the platform. To this day, when Muslims go and visit that mosque, they try to pay attention to identify that particular station where these companions used to dwell. So that means that the mosque was, to put it in modern terms, it was a home for the homeless. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the early Muslim community was being besieged by others who wanted to wipe out the religion of Islam and to do so by even decimating the Muslims. Many Muslims were injured and killed in battles. If they were killed, they would be naturally buried in the burial in the cemetery. The cemetery was just a short walk, and still is a short walk away from the mosque. You come out of the front entrance of the Prophet's mosque today and walk about, 100 meters. Yeah. And there you are at the Jannatul Baqi, the cemetery. But what about the injured? Mm-hmm. There was no dedicated hospital, and so the injured soldiers were brought to the mosque to be treated there by those who had the knowledge and ability to administer medical care. So here, not only was the mosque the home for the homeless, but it was also a medical facility for nursing the wounded. So it's obvious that the mosque had quite a varied function within the earliest Muslim society.
And it sounds like it was multi-purpose based on the needs of the community at the time and the gaps within that community.
Yes. Later on, following from that, the Muslim community would specialize. So whereas you could have classes for learning and studying the Quran and other aspects of the Islamic faith within the mosque, naturally later on it was felt more conducive to study to have dedicated universities. And so we've had them set up. We have some of the oldest universities in the world established in Muslim lands, such as the Qarawiyyin University.
But
and
not
Al
within
Azhar.
mosques, right? Like
And
obviously separate.
separate from the mosque. And sometimes you have a mosque that is associated with the university. So that the mosque then eventually came to evolve to be just simply a place for prayer. And even the matter of the study of the Islamic faith would be moved to another dedicated building. And so too, naturally, the home for the homeless would be separate. And hopefully there wouldn't be, in an ideal society, that many people who are homeless, or if they're homeless, it would be just a temporary stopping place until the society does what it needs to do to get these persons well on their feet and self-sufficient. But back to the subject at hand, the medical care as well now is administered in hospitals, where it can best be controlled and delivered hygienically and in a sanitized environment, with all of the technical apparatuses available, to administer and specialize in that treatment. To everything in its dedicated space naturally is done more efficiently and with more expertise. And so the mosque has been reduced in many cases to just simply a place of prayer. And some people, by virtue of this long experience, imagine the mosque as being restricted to this one particular function as a religious principle. But in fact, there is no religious principle that says that the mosque has to be reduced to just that one function.
So on that note then, what's your perspective? Is it in this day, like where we are now, there are some mosques that are exclusively Muslim places of worship. Increasingly now we're seeing mosques that are becoming more like, community centers. There's lots of activity happening, events, they have spaces for conferences, that kind of thing. It's no longer a sole place of worship. So from your perspective, which model you think fits within our North American context?
Yes, and I'm glad you asked it in that way, because a lot depends on context. In many parts of the Muslim world where there are dedicated facilities for all the other functions which we'll be naming and more, then naturally the mosque evolves to be just a place of worship, and that's fine. I wouldn't like to see that changed. In fact, it's a nice thing that you go into the mosque and you're not distracted by anything else. You feel this sense of spirituality, and that's good. In many parts of the world where Muslims are minorities, especially in North America, in Europe, and in the Scandinavian countries, in Australia, here we find that the needs of the new Muslim communities are many, and the facilities are few. So it becomes necessary to let the mosque provide many of the services which would normally have been provided for in separate dedicated buildings. And as I said, there's no religious principle prohibiting us from doing so. Jasser Auda has written an excellent book entitled Reclaiming the Mosque, and he defines 7 roles of the mosque, including some that we have already spoken about. But expanding from that more widely, one can think of the mosque as being also a place where people can seek employment. What I'm envisioning is that, let's say we gather for the Friday prayer. There's a mass of 300 people. Now, among these 300 people, there could be some who are looking for work, and there could be some employers, potential employers. What if they could meet in a room separate from the prayer place after the prayer is over, and this is a job fair room. Whoever's got a job, he offers it. Whoever's looking for a job can apply for one. So there can be many things spiraling out of this. Just that one thought alone can hopefully give you the idea. There is a mosque in Manassas, Virginia, that is looking to reconstruct and to expand its premises, and they will include like a medical clinic. So you could have a restaurant that generates funds for the mosque, so that people come, they eat, pray, and love, right? They come, they pray, they have to eat as well. Then they buy their food, the funds generated from that go back into the mosque funds, which would then make it possible to provide more services for the community.
So not assuming, but I'm concluding that your approach is a more community-centered approach to mosques
Yes.
in North America. So if we go with that, then where should their lines be drawn? And I guess one example is, Wi-Fi access. Maybe you can share the details with our viewers and comment on that.
Yes, the discussion arose about Wi-Fi access because a young man who is a university student came to our mosque. He obviously wanted to pray, and then after praying, continue to work on his university assignment. If he didn't have Wi-Fi access in the mosque, then he would have to go to the nearby library. And that would mean commuting time to the library and back for the next prayer. It was most convenient for him, obviously, to have Wi-Fi access at the mosque. And this generated a discussion. Should the mosques allow Wi-Fi access? And I've come to learn that some mosques do already provide Wi-Fi access. Some people think it's not a good idea. The mosque should be a place where the mind is dedicated and steered towards things having to do with the life hereafter. Wi-Fi access would just be a further distraction. People are trying to get away from all of the distractions by coming into the mosque, which is a spiritual sanctuary, and that might somehow there could be a conflict between providing the Wi-Fi access and maintaining this sanctity. So this is an ongoing discussion. Obviously, the need for the Wi-Fi access is there wherever we go to malls and everything. Wi-Fi proves indispensable, especially if you want to look up something on the fly. But on the other hand, most people do have some data access on their phone, and so if they wanted to just quickly look up the answer to a question using their own data access, then they can do that without needing Wi-Fi access from the public facility. But nonetheless, this is an ongoing discussion. If we wanted to make the mosque more attractive to youth to come in, to do their assignments, and stick around longer, then perhaps this is one of the things that need to be provided for them. But I'm not giving a definitive answer about this. I'm just opening this up for discussion. I need advice and counsel about this as well. But one of the things, if you have time, I don't know how much time you have, one of the things that I would like to stress in this discussion is that in the North American context, it is essential that mosques also become a center at which non-Muslims can learn about Islam. Many non-Muslims are learning about Islam only from the news channels, and they may have a deep curiosity to learn from Muslims themselves. So where can they go to learn from Muslims? The mosque should have a kind of open door policy, welcoming non-Muslims to come in to get their questions answered, and there should be in every mosque persons who are available to answer the questions and equipped to answer the questions. People should be trained to be able to speak about Islam in an adequate and persuasive manner, giving accurate information, especially to non-Muslims when they seek that information. Otherwise, I'm afraid that God will hold us responsible for concealing the knowledge about His faith and refusing to share it with our fellow Canadian and American citizens.
I find like we do this a lot when a horrible incident happens in the community where mosques open their doors. But it seems like there is a genuine interest, because I know Canadian Muslim Vote, I think in November 2018, actually had a visit to my mosque, and they had a really good turnout. And that wasn't a reactionary response to something that happened, but it was sort of a proactive, open approach to invite people to the mosques.
Yes, and naturally we need to have a consistent way of presenting the message and making it available to non-Muslims, especially when they contact us. But we don't have to wait for them to contact us. We can have regular open house days and regular public programs in which we invite non-Muslims to come in and learn about our faith. So the mosque can do all of these things. Many mosques in the North American context would have banquets. Communities can rent a hall within the mosque and Families can have their family get together, or someone can have a wedding or some such celebration within the mosque. It can be done within the mosque prayer hall as well, because as I've pointed out, there's no restriction, but many mosques would have a dedicated multi-purpose hall in which these other activities can be conducted.
A fruitful discussion as always. Thank you very much, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome.
Hey YouTube, we hope you benefited from this video. If you liked it, or if you didn't, let us know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning more, check out some of our other videos. And don't forget to subscribe so you can get new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.